Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, this is Lynie from the Pinkhouse, and this is a segment that's called Pink Conversations. And the pink conversation we want to have today is talking about caregivers. And in the interest of full disclosure, let me let you know I do know this caregiver. She's not new to me. She's one of my besties, and we're going to hear her story because she has been a 3-time caregiver, and we want to see how she managed that. What were some of the tools that helped her to stay positive throughout, because they were all very challenging circumstances. And so her name is Carla McCollugh, as you see going across the ticker tape. And so we're going to hear from Carla. Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became my famous caregiver.
As you mentioned, my name is Carla McCollugh.
Speak up, Sunday.
Oh, sorry. As you mentioned, my name is Carla McCollugh. How I got here, I don't know. I have a family who fell into some things that were unexpected. And as a result of that, you kind of find yourself in circumstances that you never anticipated that you would be in. So my first run-in as a caregiver was with my mom. My mom developed ovarian cancer, and initially she decided, okay, we're going to fight it, we're going to do what we need to do, and so we started down that path, and she got radiation and chemo and all those wonderful things. And so then I found myself in a position where I was kind of taking care of her. But I also still had a full-time job and a family and some small kids. So fortunately, my uncle did also agree to move down here to Maryland and help support her and myself.
Well, let me ask you a question, just to pause you for a second. When your mom first got the diagnosis and you heard that, were you like pretty much in your mind equipped to what you thought you maybe would have to do, or did it evolve as the disease process went
on? Well, initially, I think I was in denial.
Okay.
Because my mom, as many people, every time we have an ache or a pain, we always say, oh, I probably have cancer. I mean, people say that arbitrarily all the time. And so my mom was like, I think I have cancer. I'm pretty sure I do. I'm going to go to the doctor and get checked. I'm like, yeah, okay, I probably have it too, kind of whatever thing. She's like, no, I'm telling you, I know my body. I'm pretty sure I have cancer. So she called her doctor, and her doctor wanted to schedule a DNC in the hospital. My mom was like, nope, I'll come into your office and we'll just knock it out. And she was like, no, we kind of need to take you in the hospital and go on to general. My mom was like, nope. So she made an appointment and she went in, and sure enough, it was accurate. So I think, like I said, I was in denial for a long time. But then kind of after I came to grips with it, it was like, it was going to be okay. My mother was very like matter-of-factly about it. I have it, but this is what I'm going to do. This is the plan. It's going to be okay. And at the time, my grandparents were living with her, so she was really taking care of them. Mm-hmm. So she just was like, this is all going to work out. We're on top of it and whatever. So initially, it didn't seem like it was going to require a lot of me. Okay. Just kind of more of a supportive role, and maybe assist my grandparents more because my mother couldn't do that. So that was initially what my thought process was going to be.
And so then when did it shift?
When she was told that she was in stage 4. Wow. It kind of shifted because, that's kind of at the end. So, it was, so they had to be very aggressive with her treatment. And so that meant that really she was going to be down and out. So at that point, it was like, it shifted. But even then, it was like she had confidence in her doctor and they had a plan. And so it was kind of like, we're just going to march through this, and it's still going to be okay. So I knew at that point, more so than me needing to be her caregiver, I wanted to be her support. So I wanted to go to all the doctor's appointments. I wanted to make sure I was there and I was hearing everything and that kind of thing.
Now, so, let me ask you a question. As a caregiver, because of that change, did you run into any difficulties, like at work, maybe wanting to take off? Because I know sometimes caregivers, it's not easy for them either. You have to, was that a challenge for you?
Fortunately, not. My job was very, very good with the whole thing, and they were like, "Whatever you need to do, kind of family first." I think where I ran into more difficulty is that I still had small children in the family that I still had to support as well, because life doesn't stop because you become a caregiver, right?
Right.
So, although you can shift some things in some areas, I still got to be a mom to these kids. I still have to make sure that their routine stays the same. They have to go to school, they have to eat, they have to stay in their routine. So, I think that was kind of where my challenge was, kind of balancing that, and then maybe balancing the emotions of the rest of my family, because my family doesn't do well with news like that. I'm considered to be the strong one that can handle everything. And that may be true, but when it comes to your mom, that kind of isn't always what your mindset is, but you still have to be strong for the other people in your family. My aunts that were very close to her, my brother, and even my kids for that matter. So, yeah, that's where my challenges, I think, came in.
Okay, and so as her disease process progressed, you said your uncle also was a support in helping to take care of her. Was there anything special or unique that you did to try to help pour into yourself during that time, or were you not thinking about yourself at all?
Initially, I wasn't thinking about me. Initially, I kind of was really focused on her and really focused on getting her better so she could resume her life as we knew it. But my mother went through that aggressive chemo and all of that. And within 30 days of her finishing her last chemo, her cancer was back again.
Wow.
So at that point, her plan was she was no longer going to go through treatment. That was it for her. She felt like whatever time she had left, she wanted it to be quality, and going through the treatments and being fatigued and all of that was not what she considered to be the quality she wanted for the remaining portion of her life. So then at that point, when I realized that she wasn't going to do that, that sent me into another mind frame, because at that point then I was like, I don't understand why you're saying you're not going to do anything else. I don't understand. Like, we can go to all these cancer institutes and, me and my husband are researching and doing all this stuff. Like, you could do this, you could do that. Come on, And so then I don't know if it went to anger, but maybe just kind of thinking, well, boy, that's kind of selfish that you don't want to try to figure this thing out for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing it, because oftentimes I've heard caregivers say that they do go through a period, especially if someone has gone through aggressive treatment and then it's not worked. Oftentimes people don't really understand the other side of it. And so when they make that decision, it's hard, because it's like you said, it's your mom. And you just, all you know is you want her here, so you want her to keep fighting. And a lot of times the treatment modalities almost kill you themselves, and it's just really hard on the body and the mind and what have you. But I appreciate your honesty, because sometimes people don't want to admit that they maybe had anger at the person that they're caring for or whatever. But I mean, it's the reality of it.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
And so then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I thought about my kids not having their grandmother around.
Yeah.
Not seeing their graduation and all of that. But in hindsight, I can really see how selfish I was in actuality, because I wasn't being considerate of the toll that it was taking on her body, and the fact that she was really going through it, right? But that comes later, because at the time you just aren't able to see that. You just want what you want. You want your mom, and that's just.
And you are different than some of us, because although some of us have our moms in those relationships, you guys were really, really close. You guys were like best buds, and so that adds another layer to it. Because the mom-daughter relationship is unique within itself, and everybody's is different. I'm very close, but it's still a different relationship. But you guys, I mean, you just did so much together. I think a lot of your crafting, the desire to craft came from the crafting that you guys did together. Y'all were always, and those are some of the things that I remember. Y'all were always doing some craft together. Y'all were always going to the flea markets looking for, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And so, they just added an extra element to it, because it's like losing two people in this one person, your mom and your best bud. So, that I'm sure created an extra challenge. When did you recognize or know that as a caregiver, you had to take care of you too, in order to continue to support everybody else?
I think I kind of recognized that because also my mother made a decision that, or asked, she didn't want to go into a facility.
Okay.
When her remaining time at home. And so when I realized that, but I also realized what was involved with her being at home, that meant we had to learn how to, because at the time she had, and I don't know the technical terms any longer, but she had a tube that was draining from her stomach every day that we had to empty. You have to worry about bed sores and turning them, so there's a lot that goes into a person wanting to stay home, right? So at that point I realized, okay, this is not a one man show. And that's when I talked to my uncle and I said, hey, let's have some conversation, because again, my grandparents were still here, and of course they were helping as well. My grandfather had Alzheimer's at the time, so he needed some caring for. My
another challenge.
Yeah, my grandmother was elderly, right? But she's also going through, your child should never pass before you do,
right?
So that's another element. And so I just recognized at that point, okay, I need to have a conversation and see who can pitch in. And so graciously, my uncle did decide that he would come and he would move in with my mother so that she could stay in her house. That would relieve me at night, because someone had to stay with her at night, because she still had the drain and she would have the pain things. And at that point she was in hospice. So at any point, you didn't know how long she had. And if anybody's familiar with in-home hospice, you do have a nurse that kind of checks weekly. And other than that, you're just really calling her saying, these are the changes I'm seeing. But they're not a daily person that's coming in.
Right.
So at that point, and my uncle was very, very accommodating. It was like, hey, do what you need to do. I'm here. When you can be here, great. When you can't, it's okay, because I'm here. So and since I realized sometimes I had to just step away, and not just from her, but also from my family, and sometimes just kind of decompress and be with myself during that whole time. I think the one good thing about that, though, is when you get to that particular place, you're able to kind of grieve as you go along now, because you realize it's just a matter of time. So you have to adjust with the fact that this thing is coming to an end. But it's kind of nice in that, some people may go get in a car accident and then they pass instantly. So you don't have that time. It's like here today, literally gone tomorrow. But in the case with my mom, I was able to kind of grieve the process along the way.
Okay.
So it wasn't a big shock when we finally got to that point. So I think that also kind of helped because I had time, that I could say, okay, I can pour into me, I can do some things for me. Because even if she were to have passed, let's say while I was out, it would have been okay, because I've been here along the way. I've kind of this along the way. So that was helpful.
And I guess you were able to continue to have, for as long as she was able to have, like, those conversations that needed to be had, and just continuing to draw closer, even in that bond, even in this shared experience that you guys were having, until you got to the end of it. And so
I was very fortunate in that while she had her mental faculties, she did it the way she wanted to do it. She gave away and distributed everything she wanted to give to people. She made all the decisions that she wanted to make. She had the people come and visit her that she wanted to do. So I really didn't have to do that, which was kind of nice as well. So it was almost like after she had done everything that she wanted to do. Then it was like, okay, she was peaceful. And then I was peaceful because it was something that, all the decisions that were made were hers.
Okay. Wow, that's something. And so how long after that did you have to become another caregiver?
After my mom passed away, and we cleared all that up. Let's see. I don't even know the span of time, to be honest. I'm going to say maybe 8 or 9 years later. I could be off with that, but my grandmother, like I said, ended up, after my mother passed away and we did all of that, she ended up moving to North Carolina for a while, but then she wanted to come back to Pennsylvania, where we are initially from. And so her and my grandfather did that. And then eventually my grandfather passed away. And then that left my grandmother, by herself in terms of just her living situation. She had my aunts and uncles there, but of course they're getting elderly as well. And so my grandmother had gotten really sick one day in the apartment and went to the doctor, and the doctor said, okay, can't live alone anymore. We're at this stage where you can't live alone anymore. And so, you got to make some decisions about what you're going to do. I had a house, I had the space, otherwise my aunts and uncles who were there would have had to kind of uproot their lives and kind of get a bigger place because they had apartments and all of that. And again, they're getting elderly. So taking care of somebody else elderly, everybody's kind of taxed. So I decided, I talked to my husband, I said, hey, can we make this happen? Because again, I'm still working full time. My kids are older now though, so that's a plus. They can also be helpful, but can we do this? Is this something that she wants to do? So she decided, I think, this will be the easiest way on everybody, less of a burden on everybody. If I come there, you have the space. My husband at the time was retired. So it seemed that it was going to work. So, okay. So when she finally got out of the hospital, we decided to bring her down. And so we did that. And I don't know, and you might can help me with this, she might have lasted a year.
Probably.
But because she was in the hospital and was so sick, there was really no reversal. I mean, she was able to get out of the hospital, but you couldn't reverse the damage that was already done, right? So at the point that she came back, we thought she was, when she was in the hospital, she was septic, really, is what she was.
Right.
And even though she was able to come out of that, the damage that it had done on her brain and things like that could not be reversed. So when she came here, she was in a wheelchair and she was fragile and she was weak and, whatever. But we thought she was going to rally. And then some days she seemed like she was. But she didn't. She ended up getting sundowning, which was very, very rough. That was rough. So here we are back in the same situation. But of course, you know what to anticipate now, right? Because it's the second go round. So, that, like I said, that was very, very rough because she was up all night, very agitated and those type of things. So that meant lack of sleep during the day. My husband, jumped in, and I have to applaud him for that. He was very supportive during the daytime hours, working with her, talking to her, things like that. But then, you get kind of a little bit of Alzheimer's and that type of thing on top of it. And so, that was just a very quick year. But I can at least say she seemed to be happy and content for that period of time, at least while she was in her right state of mind. I look back and I laugh a lot. It was a little different because with my mom, she was kind of in her right mind the whole entire time until she passed away. My grandmother, not so much. So she provided a lot of entertainment to the family. So I think we got through that with a lot of laughter. But I will say this, through that, it really reconnected my family, because then I was making sure she reached out to my aunt who was in New York, who was older, and as the cousins, we were all kind of connecting. So that was a good time. It was a bad situation that brought about a good situation, because we all kind of got closer, because we were checking on her, because she was the matriarch of the family.
Yes, so. She was. She was indomitable. I tell you, your grandmother. Yeah, she had a tough spirit, and and so that's a good thing that was a result of that. Like you said, it's a bad situation, but it had a positive outcome on the family.
Right.
And so did your caregiver duties end?
I would love to say that they did. But then shortly after that, my husband got sick. So
Okay.
he took sick. He had a bout with cancer twice. And although the caregiving with him wasn't as intense as it was with them, because he was still mobile, upright, kind of, he could drive himself to his appointments and things like that. But I think it's just mentally draining at that point. It's just like, okay, here we go again. Like, when is enough enough, right? And then, of course, it's a different type of feeling. You go from the feeling of your mom, and that's a different relationship. And then you have your grandmother, but that's kind of different too, because my grandmother was 90. So you kind of felt like she had a very long life and kind of
Right.
did her thing. So that wasn't so bad. But then you have your husband, the person that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like forever, and the father of your children. And now you have to, like, what is this going to look like, right? So that becomes very, very challenging. But fortunately, he was a trooper through that, and he was definitely his own advocate and made sure that he had the best treatment, and he, did the research and all of that. And so, it was just kind of being supportive and, whatever you needed, however you needed, and this
So
is
what
going to be it.
outlets did you use to help support you during those various
Wow.
times? What are some of the things that you used to help nurture you?
Yeah, well, throughout all of them, I have to say that I have a good group of friends. You being one, that rank up there at the top. I have a good group of friends. And so even when I did not recognize that I needed to tap out for a minute, they recognized it a lot of times. And so, there was nothing for it to be a knock at the door or, a phone call and, hey, what can we do? Here's dinner, here's this, here's that. You just want to talk, you just want to cry, you just want to, whatever the circumstances may be. They were definitely there. And then his group of friends who were checking on him, which, when they were doing that, also allowed me to have a break.
Right.
And then my kids, of course, they were definitely right there, and whatever. And my family too, checking in. So I just think that when you have a good core circle around you.
And what about your crafting? Was that something
Well,
that you did as an escape at times throughout those situations?
probably more with my husband
Okay.
than with my mom, because after my mom passed away, I actually put down crafting for a very long time because it was something that her and I did together.
Right.
We used to scrapbook. And so after she passed away, actually to this very day, I don't think I've ever scrapbooked again. So
No, because we were supposed to, and you never did. So I can answer that.
So for that, I kind of put it away. And then moving into my grandmother used to knit these washcloths that we absolutely loved.
Yes,
And so,
Lord. I still got a few.
right. And so we kind of wanted to pass that on to somebody because everybody loved them and no one knew how to make them but her. So that kind of sparked it again, because I would video her doing it. I tried to get my daughter to do it and some of my other nieces, and then, even myself. So that kind of re-sparked it again. And then, with my husband, at that point in time, then that was like, I was definitely back into it. And so, yeah, I could go in my basement and craft or do whatever and kind of zone out for a period of time. Still being in the house, him
Right.
still here, I can
Right.
still, get to him or whatever. So definitely that was extremely therapeutic. I love to read as well. So reading definitely helped as well.
So, with all of that personal family experience, when one of your friends developed cancer, how did that affect you?
Here we go again. My best friend comes up with breast cancer. Now, what you got to know about my best friend, though, she's kind of like my mom in the sense of self-diagnosing. She's like, "Hey, something's wrong here. Let's do this."
Know your body. I don't care. They think because you're a big girl, you don't know your body. You got to know your body.
So, prior to actually getting the actual diagnosis, we're like, okay, you're over the top with this. Let's just fall back. Let's just kind of wait to see what we get, what's happening. Let's not jump the gun. But then we get the diagnosis and it's here. And, the first thing I could think of is, okay, well, if we got to have any more cancer, breast cancer is not a bad one to have, right? Out of all of them that we can have. So I'm trying to be positive about the situation. And so, that was another chapter. It's like, okay, let's learn all we can learn about, breast cancer. Let's make sure everybody else is getting their mammograms. Let's get on board. And then that's when we got heavily into the Susan Komen movement. And, we were going to every single cancer walk. We were donating. We were trying to learn. We were, just doing everything. And again, pulled everybody closer, a group of friends. Being supportive, laughing, crying, doing whatever. Because what can you do? Because now it's like these ages are getting younger and younger now where we're being affected. There was a time when we didn't have anybody in our, I didn't have any people in my family passing away, nobody in my friend group. But now I'm like in my late 40s, early 50s, and like I'm now being affected. I love how
you said that. Huh? I said, I love how you said that. Did you say late 40s, early 50s? You just didn't want to come out and just say.
Not yet. That's a whole
deep conversation. That is funny.
Yeah, but we're now at the point where we're seeing people in our circle get things, that they never did get. But we are funny people, so we laugh through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, because we've both been in situations where, like you just shared with us. Me personally, I was a caregiver for my dad for a number of years before he passed away. And, it's the laughter, it's those things that help you navigate those trying circumstances, because I will have to say, throughout it all, we've always had laughter, in our lives. It's like we can still see the joy in some things. And even though we may have those moments or periods where you have anger or frustration, I don't think that I've ever heard us say or mention, like, why me? You know what I'm saying? It's never been one of those. It's just, okay, these are the circumstances we've been dealt with. We got to get a game plan, and this is how we're going to work through it. It's never been one of those things. And then I think, again, like you said, we have a nice, solid core group of friends that have always been there. And, just having our faith and also just the laughter. It helps you deal with unimaginable circumstances. And unfortunately, having been that first caregiver with your mom, it just prepped you for whatever life was going to bring down the road, no matter who the person was that you were going to have to assist or whatever. And that's the way it is. Once you've done it that first time, it just ultimately preps you for whenever you may have to be put in that position to do it again. Yeah. But this has been fascinating. Just hearing it, flow that way, because when you're there and you're observer, and sometimes you forget some of the details. And I will say this, one of the things that I remember about your mom, and this is right before she passed, and I had come out to the house to visit. I'll never forget. I don't know what you were doing. You had gone somewhere. I guess you were giving us some time to chat or whatever. And one of the things that she pressed upon me was to just look out for you, and that was always a very touching moment for me with her. She was just to look out for you, to care for you. And and that's, I guess, what parents do, even with their dying breath. They want to make sure their children are okay. Even if their children are grown, they want to make sure that they're okay, that they're taken care of. And so that's one of my fondest memories.
For sure.
And I got too many about Kitty. That's her grandmother. To regale people with. That was my homie. She was a spitfire, and I loved her dearly. And
And when you said that, just brought back something to mind. Another reason why that I was also able to kind of care for myself is that my mother was very conscious of that, even while she was sick. She didn't want to be a burden. She made it very clear, like, I'm not going to be a burden to you. You need to go, and you need to take care of yourself. And so she was always very conscious about people who were taking care of her. to make sure that they knew it was okay, because she was very clear. I'm not going to get any better. So if you go out for an hour or two, my circumstances isn't going to change. So, don't be afraid to do that, because as she would always say, because when I'm gone, you still have a life you got to live. You still got to be there for your kids and everybody else. And it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when for me. So you got to make sure that you're still in good shape to be able to carry on what you need to do when I go.
Yeah.
And so,
here's the question. As a caregiver, what's one piece of advice that you would want to share with people that have been thrust into that role, people tomorrow that will get a diagnosis from someone and now they're going to have to be, what's one piece of advice you would want to share with them?
It's probably going to sound really, really crazy.
Speak up a little bit. I can't hear you.
It's probably going to sound really, really crazy, but I'm going to tell you not to change your life to fit the caregiving aspect into what you're already doing. Because again, when that person, and I'm assuming, okay, so let me say this. I'm assuming that you're caregiving for someone who is going to pass, not someone who just has a broken leg and needs some help until the cast is off, right?
Well, so, I guess a caregiver is a caregiver, even if it's something that's terminal or if it's something that's temporary for a time period.
Well, my comment is for a permanent one, because I think if it's a temporary situation, then you absolutely should change your life, because it's only going to be for a short period of time, and you should bend to accommodate the circumstance. But if it's a situation where a person is terminally ill, then I would say not to, because as my mother said, once that person is gone, you still have to carry on your life. So you don't want to have turned your world so upside down that you can't get back into it when that person is gone.
Right. Yeah, your life becomes so unrecognizable that you.
Yeah, I've seen people do it, and it's a sad commentary, because they end up losing. I've seen people do it, and their marriages don't last. They lose their jobs and everything else, because they can't get back into their routine that they were in prior to. They don't know what to do, because all they've been for however long is a caregiver, and now that person's gone. So I would say you need to maintain a semblance of whatever your routine was, prior to that person getting sick. But then I will also say too, is that you got to have support. You cannot do it by yourself. You may want to, but you cannot do it by yourself. And so sometimes that looks like having to put people in a home, even though that the discussion may have been, I will never do that. But sometimes that may be what your heart wants to do. But in reality, you may have to do it. And I think about that from the aspect of my grandfather never wanted to be in a home, and my grandmother agreed to that. But when he got to the point that he was falling and my grandmother was elderly and couldn't support him, it was like, y'all gonna hurt both of y'all. Like, so this has to be done. So, just kind of understand that you may have a plan, but it may end up being different. So just be flexible in what you do, and don't be hard on yourself, because caregiving is hard enough if you're doing the best that you can. Don't let anyone else be in your ear telling you you need to do something differently or something else. Just be kind to yourself.
Well, that is good, sound advice. And so the last comment I would want to make is that this is also for the caregivers, and that hopefully they'll extract from it a message and a lesson that in addition to caring for your loved one, you got to care for you too. You got to create a space that you can rejuvenate and refresh yourself, even if it's for like a 5-10 minute thing, but do it on a regular so that you can get poured back into, because it does take a lot. It can be exhausting, and it's just very challenging. Like you said, dealing with young kids, it could be a circumstance, dealing with everybody's emotion about what was going on, and so that's what I would hope anybody hearing this conversation would take away from it. And maybe, sad to say, Carla, because of the pandemic and the way life has been in these last 2 years, it could be their one connection right now is hearing this conversation on YouTube. So if that's the case, there are so many resources out there that I would suggest connect with wherever your person is getting their treatment. They have resources out there to help support you in what you need in order to support them. And so that would be my encouragement, because you're not alone. And, you know, if you recognize you need some assistance, just reach out and you can get the support you need. But we want to thank you for sharing those aspects of your lovely life. And hopefully that this will do what it's intended to do, and that's to encourage and upbuild other caregivers to know that, you know, and that there's life beyond it. You know, she has a thriving YouTube channel, CLM Custom Designs. She makes some of the best handmade crafts and goods. And so I would suggest you guys check it out. But again, so we want to thank Carla. Thank you, darling. This was very, very, very critical. I think it's just something that's needed.
Good and calm now. So yes.
What you said? What?
And life is good and calm now, and
that's good.
Hubby's great. So there is and best friend is great. So there is life on the other side.
Yeah. All right. So to our audience, we're going to end the broadcast.